there.
That had happened 3 days before. They hadn't actually attacked us, but someone was in the meeting and her face was there. And on another screen, her face was there with her name. Someone had renamed themselves some capture and fake camera device. That's a very common thing for people.
Say that again because my internet just get hiccup.
If you have the can capture anyone's image, you just pin it and you capture it, and then you can and pretend that's a camera input. Present that on Zoom. Once you re-enter Zoom with their name, we have renaming turned off during the session. They could come in and they could look like moving of a person, and they could have that person's name. That hasn't happened in this meeting, but I've heard it happen once last weekend. I don't know what the purpose of that one was. I think someone was just playing. More
Okay,
questions?
I get it. I can totally understand it now.
Yeah. We did have on Monday, we had that cacophonous problem, and I was so proud of the Quakers. Well, we were trying to fumble around, figure out what to do. They just started singing, and they loud enough that you couldn't hear what the people were shouting or anything. That is behavior that doing in real life. It's like you're out there doing something and people are yelling at you, you just start singing. But okay. See? Robert has done it to me. Okay.
That's what it's very easy to do, so it's not a big challenge.
And luckily the young people appeared to have and every single day indefinitely. It's a praying for peace, and so until they decide there's no reason to do that, it will happen. Any more questions about it? So that's the experiment with people who demand that you have the ability to speak and that you see faces. Robert.
I just wanted to say I thought that's really brilliant of you to come up with the idea of renaming people to get them to the top of the list so you can monitor them once they've raised their digital hand before you open their mics. That is brilliant, Lois.
It's so practical. For practicality. The other thing that we did is, and when someone raised their hand and they were asked to unmute, and they went to give their ministry, there were these little fingers, little buttons right over the mute. And so if they started saying something inappropriate, we could immediately mute them. And then even if they decided to lower the and hide, they couldn't. So it worked out well. We only had to do that once. And it wasn't one of the kids. It was someone who was just, well, doesn't matter. Anyway, any other questions?
So has it been established whether or not Zoom is going to be affected by the sanctions? You mentioned that the organizer is in Russia.
No, the organizer is not in Russia. It is the Friends House Moscow was created many years ago to assist the people in Russia. The board is some Russians, but mostly US. And so I don't believe there were more than one or two people, if that many, on the call that were actually from Russia. So we'll see tomorrow if there are people who can't come. When we heard this morning that was happening, and we heard it just after the meeting had ended, we told whoever was left over, if you have friends in Russia, now is a good time to send them an email because you might not be able to tomorrow. For those of you who don't know, one of the major internet suppliers has said that they will not have transmission into Russia starting, I think it's noon, which would be now time. Okay, so that's the low-tech, low-key, got to have your videos on. If we did not have that situation, if we were in a situation where we were dealing with people who all could have their own accounts, the best thing to do to solve my problems in this meeting would have been say, you must register. And so send out the link. Instead of the link coming into the meeting, the link goes to where you register. It doesn't mean that it won't stop those other people from coming in. It just means that they'll burn up an account each time they come, and we say that who they are. Hey, Ray.
Would you minimize the population of possibilities if you offered registration? So there is some potential number who are willing to register,
Yeah.
and that would help you cut the people you had to really concern to monitor down somewhat.
You wouldn't know. If you say registration is optional, and I'm not even sure it's possible to do that, but even if we did that, the people who didn't register, you wouldn't know who was who. You know, we did not install a waiting room because we don't know who's expected. A lot of the people are not technologically savvy, so they don't come in with their full name and their country and their meeting affiliation. They just come in with rows. You know.
So there's no way to segregate, bad choice of words, separate people who registered
No.
and are attending and those who didn't and are attending, so that at least the moderator could look at the subset.
No, as far as I know, there's no way. In fact, I'm not even sure you can do that. I have a feeling if you require registration, then you cannot have someone who's not registered. Perhaps on a phone, you might not have to register. And perhaps if you used a browser, I'm not sure about that. But in any case, it wouldn't help our situation. So the other thing that one would want to do if you were really serious about making it secure, turn off everybody's video. That's not going to fly with this group. Robert.
I've managed some of those meetings with prayer groups, and one of the things. Can you not hear me, Ray? You're going to go up a bit. Is that better?
It's fine.
Okay. I've managed prayer groups in my times, and one of the things we've done for people who can't register, don't want to register, don't know how to register, is we've just streamed the prayer meetings into YouTube, and those people can just go straight in and participate. However, they can't participate actively. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing to do, yeah. Yeah. That's not something we would have considered, but it's
not ideal
you
because
you would have a more public thing than you would if people came into your meeting, I think.
we find that we get more people attending, yes, because the YouTube channel becomes very, very popular. As soon as it goes live, you get a lot of people going in there. We tend to switch off the comments because it gets a bit messy, but it is definitely a way of having people who have a technological barrier or any other barrier from getting in, or can only use a browser or are on their phones, and they don't want to use much data. It is a good option.
I will bring that up to the I'll bring it to the attention of the folks who've running the meeting. And if we get in a situation where that becomes a problem, or if we want to just reach more people, the problem is because it's Quakers and the feeling is that you're looking at all these faces, you are doing the same thing at the same time. There's an assumption of a spiritual connectedness, and watching a video is not going to replicate that in people's minds. Now, whether or not it's true, people have different opinions on that, but in the minds of folks who are experiencing that, YouTube wouldn't help. But that's a good idea, though.
It's also an option if you get over 1,000, because you can do the overflow onto YouTube.
Yeah, and I would add, keeping in mind, you say, how many people, even if it was this open meeting, right? How many people can somebody see on screen at once anyways?
49.
The numbers, 49 maximum with the right kind of hardware, right? And so would we, and I'm not talking to you, Lois, I'm just talking out loud, could we consider, because, I certainly don't wish it upon anybody with large meetings, but I might predict there will come a day where your public meeting will have a worse experience than you had before, just because you're kind of primed for it with those settings. I run into the same thing with I'm not the one calling all the shots on this big Saturday group either, and unfortunately I just have to sit back and wait for something terrible to happen. But anyways, if the maximum number, and I don't think 49 can go out to a stream. I believe the stream is limited to 25.
I think so.
As far as gallery view goes, but I would have to go, double confirm that and so forth. But needless to say, if it's 25 or 49, could we invite, because those are the ones you have contact with, right? Visual, contact with for that power of prayer and so forth. Do you invite those 49 people personally, so that they have cameras on, they have good mics, and those will be the ones that everybody connects with, and then it minimizes, if you will, the opportunity to run into incidences of just bad players at that. But just another thought. And so what's going through my mind, and thanks so much for sharing. Go ahead, Lois.
One of the things to think about also is that this group is not, many of them are not interested in being recorded for one reason or another. And so if you're going to stream to YouTube, you are by definition recording them. And so if that ended up happening, my guess is that, well, right now we have about 70% of the people with cameras on, and then the rest don't have cameras on. My guess is that would go way down, that half the people with their cameras on right now would turn their cameras off or would not come. And that, again, that to this situation, but that's something to take into consideration. Yeah, Ray.
We often get asked in a large meeting of 500 or 1,000 people to put 5, 6, 7 microphones out in the audience so that they can do Q&A. And I try to explain to them that within the 40 minutes you've allowed for Q&A, the average question answer period, let's say, is 5 minutes. You don't have, there's not a chance you're going to fill all of those people. You're going to have a lot of disappointed people. And in your case, see themselves, is it important that they see themselves, or is it important that they just, while they're speaking, that hear them? Because if they don't have their camera on, then they don't, do you not recognize them, or do you?
For security's reasons, we have said, if you raise your hand wanting to give ministry, we will send you a chat and say, please turn on your camera. We want to know who it is that's talking before we turn on their microphone, because if it's someone who's just going to start yelling or being obscene or whatever, we want to see the person before we do that. So we could change how we were doing things. Well, the other thing we do is, if people can't turn on a microphone or can't figure out how to raise their hands, they can raise their human hand, and as the co-hosts go back and through, they can talk to this person and put their ministry in the chat and then read it for them. Mary Jane says that.
Well, last night, watching you just explain how to get into chat, let alone the Makana discussion, but to get into chat. So if you have some of these challenged people, do they routinely use chat to the best advantage?
No, and some of them don't know how to turn on chat, don't know how to do a lot of things.
I would try to solve the problem, or not to solve the problem, but I'd try to design the event for those who can take advantage of medium and find some alternative method for the others.
I
I don't
think
know how
that
you
is
divide them.
that is a very good and true thing to do for other meetings. This meeting, they're not going
Gotta
to
be
do it.
open.
And understand, the meeting is not a hierarchically run. It's not, the Pope said do this.
No,
This is
it's
a
a
bunch
clicker.
of folks who
Right.
are used to doing everything by committee. So it's interesting. Okay. Anyway, any other suggestions for me on that? And if not, we'll turn it over to Jeff to talk about commercial meetings. Anybody else? Thank you. You're on, Jeff.
I am back. I've turned off my original sound to get rid of any extra. So hopefully that's better. But thanks for the share, Lois, and the thinking. And it's just there's so many options, and the more familiar we are, and I think all of us in the Zoom test kitchen are pretty familiar with a lot more options than most Zoom attendees, for sure, and we have the interest to continue to learn and apply and so forth, where attendees or even hosts that aren't that close to it, they're not interested. They're one thing that they're interested in is quieting down the people who are complaining to them about registration, or finding this or finding that. How do you mute the chat bubbles that keep popping up and covering up part of the gallery, or the closed captioning, or things like that. I mean, they're tough ones to solve, and they just want them resolved. And they until they get to witness disturbing images, pornography, whatever the case is, they won't be willing, convinced that something has to change. And even then, there's no guarantee. I mean, there just isn't. There's no. I mean, it's getting closer now to there can be a kind of perfect, but there's never going to be a perfect set of settings for publicly advertised, publicly open meetings. Just can't do it. I mean, those two things just don't go together, right? And so it's a best effort. It's a delegation of tasks, right? You have people intentionally watching page one, watching page two, watching. I mean, you just have somebody assigned to monitor. There's a lot of it. There's pros and cons with every decision and option implemented, which is if they're going to monitor, should the rights to cure the problem. And I would say probably so. So now you're making 20, 30, 40 people co-host, which is a huge danger zone as far as, the meeting and things that could go unexpectedly sideways on you because they're clicking around and so forth. And they have the power to do so, but not the knowledge to know the consequences. So it can be tough. Yeah, Lois.
So one of the things that we did, that I taught, they learned, and we did, is that when you have that many people, so you have 500 people, and you have all these pages and pages and pages, what we figured out, what I've told them, is go to one of the squares that does not have click on it, hide non-video participants. All the faces are now together. Go up to your view button and say show non-video participants. And what happens is it collects all of your faces in one area, all of the non-faces now are at the end. Now, as people join, they may join and become faces, so you may have to do this more than once. But it is an extremely good way to make it so that the co-hosts are only having to go back and forth through 5 pages instead of 9 or 12 or whatever. So you're only looking at the videos of people who have their video on. The thing we did find is that instead of trying to say, you do page 1 and you do page 2 and you do page 3, we said each of the people who doesn't have a specific task, just wander back and forth and look at things. Just, it doesn't matter who finds the problem. When you find the problem, fix it or rename the person with a certain symbol at the beginning, and you can have more than one, so that that name pops up the top and someone else can handle it, so that a more broad thing worked rather than trying to assign pages.
When that happens, does everybody see that person jump to the front of the screen in gallery?
Does not change where you are in gallery view. It changes your placement on the participants list. Participants, yours will always be your name, and then the host, and people with their hands up, and the co-hosts, and then it starts alphabetically, people whose mics are on, and then people whose mics are off, and then it goes all the way down, and at the bottom are people who like are on phones or don't have a video or something. But anyway, that big thing is alphabetical, but this pops them to the top because stars are alphabetized before the letter A.
Yeah, special characters, dash, underscore, stars. Yeah, anything there. I happen to use an invisible space because then people don't even know that you've renamed them. So I on a PC, if anybody wants to try this, you can go to rename yourself. And if you're on a PC or a Mac, I think I have the Mac equivalent. On a PC first, if you rename yourself, put the cursor at the beginning of your name and press and hold the Alt key down. And if you have I think you have to have a 10 key numeric pad on your keyboard. And so you press and hold Alt 255 on a PC. And when you let up, the cursor will just kind of bump the character over a notch. It's visually non-distracting. The fuzzy search that Zoom uses in participants still works just fine because it's not a messed up character, and people, it's just a very small indentation. I believe Command Spacebar on a Mac does the same
I
thing.
believe it is Option Space.
Option Space.
I believe so. Let me see. I see it won't change my name because I'm already at the top of the list, so I won't see any difference. I'd have to change somebody else's name for this.
No, it'll scoot your name in just a touch, almost like doing a tab, but it's just a really small move of an invisible space.
It is
The 256
Option
worked
or
with me
Alt
on Windows.
and a space.
Option space bar, it says on a Mac. Yeah.
Option space or Alt space. It depends on what your keyboard
Alt
says.
space. Yeah. Okay. So, that's just one of those.
By the way, the Greek symbols alphabetize after the letter Z. So if you did Option Z, which gives you the omega symbol, that would alphabetize it to the bottom instead of the top of that alphabetization list.
Cool. Yeah, it's a good, I mean, if you have like 6 primary speakers, and, you're going to breakout rooms and coming back and so forth, those prefix characters, be them what they will, really save the day, especially when they leave and come back and the video order changes in the gallery view and you have to start spotlighting via the participants list. It helps a lot. There's so many options to talk about and things that continue to change as well. I think about that character, prefix character helps a lot there. I hate spotlighting from the participants list. It's like my very last go-to option, but you kind of have to, get things set up and go. And I went there because, and prior to the gallery order being able to be arranged and saved. Now I, while all the speakers are flowing in, I start the meeting, the speakers show up, they're all stacked up top. I can just adjust one tile, kind of get me out of the way, put speaker. And then if it's been set, there's definitely portal setup on this feature. It has to, it's part of scheduling a meeting now, is to allow the host to save the gallery order. But then you can save what you just adjusted. And not everybody has to be in the meeting yet, but at least all the speakers. Now, when they leave and escape out to breakout rooms and come back, and they would normally be lost in the video order flow, now as the host, I can just load that gallery order that I saved, and it doesn't matter what page they're on, they come back to the top of the gallery. And so that's a method, and that lets me continue to spotlight via the gallery view or the video view versus the participants. But I almost always try to remember to have both options ready and available. Robert, and then Lois.
One of the things we do when we have a lot of participants is we take a second monitor and we turn it around 90 degrees, so it's a vertical type monitor, and you can see a lot more participants on that list in that way.
Yeah, and pop out the participants window, right? So it's a
correct.
Floating window. You stretch it as tall as that screen goes, and yeah, no, totally great idea. Lois?
I don't think my hand is up at the moment, but I did want to mention.
Okay. Go ahead.
I did want to mention that from the participants list, you can pin someone. So if you can't find them and you're not sure if they're ready for you or they're eating their sandwich, you can at least pin them on your own screen and see what they look like, and then go back, unpin them, and spotlight them if you need to, if you can't find them. I really wish there was a way to, well, there is a way to reorder people, but first you have to locate them on the screen. Oh, by the way, a trick, if you have, 5 pages and someone comes in, you go, it should be, I want them on the first screen. If you grab and drag them and you bring them onto the arrow that's going to the left, just hold them over the arrow and it'll go flip, 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 and pretty soon you're on the first screen. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you can find them, you drag it. It was many, many months ago that I was kind of stressing about losing my speakers into other pages, and it was a Zoom OSC thing because I was using, the position in the gallery, and I had never had to find somebody deep in the gallery pages and bring them forward. So I didn't know if it was possible, and that's when I learned, yeah, it is. So you can, keep in mind, going from page to page isn't the speediest process in the whole world. That's for sure. Because there's a lot of video to load and render, on each new page, and if I have to scramble back, I wish there was a way, to kind of type, page 1 or page 10, or, have some quick changes, but I haven't identified that method available.
There is a hotkey, I believe, and you can program it into your StreamYard also, that you can go
to change next
page.
Or previous page,
Yeah,
right? Yeah. All right, David.
So I've fallen in love recently with the search feature in the participants panel. I use that all the time. Type in a couple letters of the person's name. I also ask all of my speakers to put an asterisk before their name, which pops them right up to the top. And what I'm really waiting for, though, is for them to make the participants panel more user-friendly. I want mute, spotlight, and pin buttons right next to the person's name. And then you can, when you make it more narrow, maybe they disappear back into that more menu. And then if you spread it out, then you can actually see all those buttons and just press them, because right now it's such a pain in the ass.
Oh, it is. I don't know. There's so many ways, as a graphical designer to, think about what might be the best ways. Like, not a lot of people pop out the participants window, but tons of moderators and producers do. And so, I think maybe that initial trigger is when you pop it out, and then you can widen it then all of a sudden you get these additional columns. And the other thing I'd like to see with that is a magnification to be able to, make thicker rows, if you will, so that the icons and the name text get a little bit larger, because it's all about, throwing darts at a tiny little target or a nice, big, easy to see and hit target, if you will. And, and that's your mouse,
A target that's also oftentimes moving and changing.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, if someone speaks, if someone raises their hand, everything gets out of whack.
Well, yeah, without a search, right? I mean, and it can still change with a search, but a search kind of begins to hold it down. And but their fuzzy search is phenomenal, no doubt. I mean, one character starts the entire process, get more, and doesn't have to be the beginning of a name or the end. It can be in the middle. I mean, it's crazy fast and works really well that way. It's just not the ideal place to manage, or how about their search? If I'm in gallery view and I did a fuzzy search, it gave me the results in gallery view. So all these videos would just come down to these three. And I mean, because then you have a bigger target to spotlight or mute or unmute or whatnot as well. Just lots of different ways to think about how to actually implement something like that. But yeah, so many thoughts there. So thanks for that share. Robert?
Yeah, and to make it even more complicated in what Lois was talking about, when you've got several co-hosts, people may be clicking the same people, doing the same function, and everything is just going backwards and forward. But Jeff, this is a Jeff question, really. Isn't Companion a solution to managing this?
Yeah, well, to a degree, Companion and Zoom OSC. I mean, there's you can do Stream Deck for the shortcuts that are built into Zoom, and Stream Deck and Stream Deck software, the shortcuts that are built into Zoom. But if you want to go beyond that and start, spotlighting and pinning and muting and unmuting and so forth, then Companion becomes your best friend, because Zoom OSC makes itself present and so forth. We're in a bit of a tough moment right now with several. There's a few key features that are new key features in Zoom that if you don't upgrade upon arriving to the meeting, you won't get in the meeting. You may find that a host like this meeting right now, because I always try to keep just about everything on, so that if we need to on the fly demo it or work through it and figure it out, those features are on. And so with that, Zoom OSC will no longer connect to this meeting, because it requires an upgrade to the client, and the Zoom OSC tied to the SDK, which is an older version of the client, can't upgrade itself and still work and so forth. So I've talked to Andy about it, and they're working fervently to get that resolved, and hopefully the goal and achievement will be the SDK will, the dependency of the SDK will not be quite as heavy, and also the SDK version will be the same as the latest release version as well. That would be ideal. But if you're not up against that issue, Zoom OSC and Companion is absolutely wonderful. I don't have it tied into this meeting right now, but I have 7 buttons on my Stream Deck right now that they start the show and start the recording and the stream and end the show and so forth. But there's 7 other buttons. There's 8 of them that are, let's see, there's 7 of each. There's 7 that will auto populate when a hand is raised, and so it'll show it. I'm not signed into it right now, but where it says hand spot right now, it would auto populate Lois because she has her hand up first. Then the second one would be George and those 2 hands. And so they show up, they buttons. Now they've got somebody's name because their hand is raised. And when I press it, it spotlights them. It adds the spotlight to the existing spotlight. And so that kind of functionality, and it doesn't have to be a simple one step. It can be spotlight, unmute all at the same time, lower the hand, unspotlight them, mute them when you put them back, if you will. And and so it can be just phenomenal to be able to have those panels preset and pre-configured for meetings that you're going into to manage. So yeah, it's great stuff. You don't have to buy a Stream Deck. That's the thing. It's not about a physical device. Companion is free and it's software based. You can do it with a mouse and a browser. You can use their emulator. You can bring your iPad, and if it's, as long as it's on the same network, you can hit the web page or the emulator page and just use your touch screen of your iPad, whatever the case may be. Super flexible. Lois?
So just a a thought, a warning, an observation. If I am looking at my first screen as I want to see all those faces and I hide non-video participants, all the faces now are together. It is a good idea to then go back and say show non-video participants, even though they're going to be at the bottom, you won't really notice them. Because if any one of us turns our camera off, we get bumped to the bottom. If you have hide non-video participants there, when I turn my camera on, I do not get replaced into this section. I stay wherever I was. So just a warning. I found that.
Yeah. The another approach, and George, I'll get right with you. Another approach into it now with a, fairly fresh within the last several months, is called focus mode. And that is, if you hide non-video participants, does it hide it for everybody in the meeting? And the answer is no. It only hides it on your screen. If you enable focus mode, it hides all the videos for everybody in the meeting except the videos that are spotlit by the host. So the audience will see, I'll go ahead and enable it. So it's on my toolbar under the More button. Excuse me. And it's called Start Focus Mode. So I'm going to start focus mode. And it pops up a explanation dialog. It says participants will only be able to see the host's videos, shared content, and videos of spotlighted participants. Note, you can allow shared content to be viewed by everyone in the screen sharing menu.
It's
And
webinar
so
for cheap people like me.
yeah. It's not that they can't change their view from like speaker to gallery. It doesn't lock that down quite as tightly as webinar can force what you see, but this is a pretty forceful move for a meeting feature for sure. And so you click on start, and now everybody just sees me only because I'm the host. Now,
unless you're a co-host. Co-hosts still see everyone also.
Okay.
Yeah.
So David and Ray, you see, and Lois, you see everybody with their videos that are on, you still see them.
Correct.
Okay. And then I'm going to add a spotlight of David. Now, those that are not co-host, the only videos you'll see are Jeff and David. And I'll add another, and I'll add another. And you could essentially build your own custom gallery, if you will, right? So now you have a 6 up out of 1,000 people in a meeting, and that's what the audience sees too, and it's much more forceful, if you will, as a result, than when you really understand Zoom and the way it works. In a meeting, spotlight 6 people. I mean, I leave it up on their screen that way, but they can make the change and so forth. My question is, in focus mode with a 6 up spotlight, as a non-co-host, so I'm asking maybe George or Pete, can you change to a gallery view, and what do you see?
I still see this. I still see the 6.
You still see the 6. Go
I'm
back to
in,
speaker view, and what do you see?
but
The 6, right?
I see everybody in gallery view when you were
I
spotlight.
see the same here.
As soon as I went from speaker to gallery view, I could see everybody. I could see all of the screens, but I don't see any of the still photography that acts as a replacement. All I see is black boxes with names. And I go back to speaker view and I see the 6 of you.
Same here.
So when you go to gallery, you're not limited to the 6 anymore. You see Pete as well. He's one that's not spotlit, but with video on. So in your gallery right now, you see the 6 plus yourself and Pete. True? You're muted, George.
Affirmative.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Well, I can't see Pete. I can only see Pete's name.
You're right, Robert. Pete's camera appears to be off at this point.
No,
How
Pete's
about
camera's
Pete
on. I can see it.
Paraskevas?
My
Pete's
camera is on.
I can see you.
Yeah.
Ah, weird. I can't.
I'm on a
Yeah.
Windows machine.
Are you able, George, to hide non-video participants in your gallery view?
Give me 1 sec and I will try. I'm in my settings.
Well, to do that, the easiest way to do that is take the square that represents Pete and just right click on it or click on the 3 dots. Because his camera's off, you'll have that hide non-video users.
Except my camera's on.
Yeah, his camera's
It is
on.
on,
Both
but
Pete's cameras are on.
visually, attendees are only seeing it as his name.
Oh.
Oh,
Host
I
and
see.
co-host
Okay.
can see the actual video.
So I can see in what view am I? Speaker view right now. I can see everyone's video, including mine, and everyone else's names only. And then
Speaker view, that's what you see?
Say
A
again,
gallery
Pete. I didn't understand what
Gallery
you
I'm
were
sorry,
describing.
I got it mixed up here. That was the gallery view. In the speaker view, I see just the,
Yeah.
and then at the top, I can see my video, and I can see George, Elvis, Jeff's
Yeah,
MacBook.
Yeah, there's a ribbon
showing
view.
up.
And you can change the ribbon by clicking the arrow on the right, can't you, Pete?
Say what again?
On the ribbon at the top, is there an arrow to the right so you can
Oh,
see?
yeah. I can
Okay,
slide that
normal.
around.
Okay, that's normal.
But when you say you can, so you're in speaker view, you see the 6 spotlights, and then you said, and I can see myself and George. Are you really seeing George, or are you seeing George's name?
George's name. So there's
Thank you.
from what
Because
Lois said,
it was beginning to sound really inconsistent. But like I have a Mac logged into the meeting, MacBook Pro, you can see it as the name, and I'm in speaker view with the ribbon across the top, but they're all just their names, no video. And then I have the spotlights. When I go to the gallery view, I'll say this carefully. I can see everybody in the meeting by name unless they're spotlit. And those that are spotlit are the 6 videos that I can see on in the gallery. So I've got them spotlit. So if I unspot Robert in my gallery, my gallery out of everybody in the meeting, the 6 videos that were on a moment ago are 5 videos that are on, and Robert turned into a name versus a video.
So
I think you also see yourself.
Correct. I can see myself.
Jeff,
Yeah. It never hides yourself. I do. I happen to be spotlit, but also the host. But even if I wasn't the host or co-host, yes, you always have your own self view.
So Jeff, can you see me now? Can you see what I'm sending you?
No, I have no video of you. Well, I do have it on my Mac. I don't see you on
Yeah. That's
on
my
my main host. I can see. Yeah, and
that's what my
yeah.
speaker
You're
view
right.
is.
Your ribbon shows no video, and it
Yeah.
shouldn't. But it shows the 6 spotlights. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
You know, I mean, and think about where this applies. I mean, one, you know, maybe it is a resolution. You know, like if you had, well, let's just go back to Lois's opening of her, you know, let's say 500 people in a meeting, and there were issues. And so she hit the red panic button, which is, we didn't even used to have that, but then we got the red panic button. And the red panic button is like running through your house and closing every shade, shutting off every light switch. You know, it's just like shut. Everything gets shut down, including yourself as a host. Not logged off, not disconnected, doesn't kill the meeting, although it does lock it. So there'd be no more entries and so forth. But it's a lot to rebuild. And so if you had an issue, especially at a large meeting or even a smaller meeting, would it be suffice to be able to shut off everybody's video except the ones you care about right now because there's a problem, right?
Sorry.
I mean,
Jeff, I'm sorry. The red panic button, is that the suspend participant activities?
yes, yeah. So it's under the security
Yeah, I got
badge.
it.
Yeah,
It's not a button. We just call it that.
yeah. I think of gas stations when I think, you know, they have those big red buttons that, you know, if you hit it, it'll do all kinds of wild stuff. But it, you know, it's the suspend. It doesn't say suspend. Suspend participant activities, and it's just, you know.
And speaking from experience this week, it is not that hard to turn things back on because in that same shield, you have the controls for almost everything. The one thing that I don't control from there is I would go to chat and say they can only chat with host, and then I could turn on the chat, and that would
Yeah.
limit that. But other than that, that shield, that security does most everything pretty well.
It holds the most of the master keys is right.
And this would be an excellent situation in which if you had renamed the people that you want on your to be talking, if you had renamed them with that the invisible space at the beginning, then you could easily allow them to turn on their video without, you can allow certain people to turn on their video without others. Is that correct? Individual by individual?
Yeah, let me go to an account here. Streamer. Yeah, so Streamer is my machine without video on, and I can send a ask to start video. It will only and ever be an ask.
Right.
And you know, with that, there's I just think about all these little connection points. David said, and Lois said, even before that, these prefix characters, helpful for the sort. David later added how very useful the search is. It's fast, it's super useful on the top of the participants window. Imagine being, you've got, 900 people in a meeting, you shut it down, you know that your speakers all have, even the hidden space. If I do a search right now for Alt 255,
It comes
Robert
up.
is the one it filters
Yes.
up down to, or you do a search for an asterisk or whatever your character is, you can instantly get the group of all your speakers to be able to get them all turned back on and back in the meeting. And because keep in mind, everybody's still in listen mode. They may be dark, they may not be able to talk back, and they may not even be able to chat until you get those things turned on, if you want to turn them on. But I would say in a lot of cases, the primary piece is that the meeting continues. Most, I know, not all, Lois's is one for sure, meetings are deliverables, primarily a deliverable, and so you get it back to a state of delivery, right? And so combine that special character use for your speakers with the search to be able to quickly find them in a large group. And then you go, hey, let's go ahead and let everybody else turn on their cameras, but not before we turn on focus mode. And you just go into a spotlight management mode instead of not, right?
And where is focus mode again? Where do you find that?
It I don't recall if it is a back-end portal turn on. I don't know if somebody else knows. Is it something that has to be enabled? It's been a while.
Yes.
But once it's enabled, it's under the More button which is the right side of your primary toolbar, and so you go to focus mode. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off now.
It is a setting you have to turn on.
Okay.
And that was interesting because I do not have a more button at this time. I did a moment ago and it said stop focus mode. I'm a co-host. I could have stopped focus mode, but I couldn't start it.
Yeah, I think only the host can start it.
I could start focus mode now. What did you change, Jeff?
I had already started it, so no one else can start it again. It's already started. And so, but you could, if I started focus mode or one of the co-hosts started focus mode, and then any of us can manage the spotlighting, right? Because hosts and co-hosts can all spotlight and unspotlight. And so you can manage it, I can manage it, you can turn it off, I can turn it off. But once it's started once, there's really no reason to let the other co-host potentially start it because it's already running, if you will. That makes sense? There's a Pete side camera.
Hey, I got a quick question for everyone, and I'm going to pop it up here. I had a friend of mine who does a broadcast on Facebook and YouTube every week. We use Zoom for myself and one or two other people to talk to him. I had to take a photo of this because my screenshot didn't work. If you look on the right side of the screen, upper right, okay, that's the Zoom window where you see all the participants in it. Frank, who is up there, is talking. I punched up a black signal and muted myself. You see in the lower right, that is if you're using two screens.
Yeah, that's the floating. That's the floating gallery.
Yeah. But that was something happened. I don't know what it was, but that punched up black. It stayed black. But if you look to the far left on the on-air, it didn't. It cut out a couple times briefly, but it stayed with him.
Yeah. So the left image is the stream.
Yeah.
So that's a delayed view of the speaker, which is the same person there, Frank Allen, but just at different moments because of the delay, because it's a stream.
Yeah.
The bottom right window is when you pop out the participants. You can also pop out the chat, and you can also, especially if at one point, I would guess at one point you were full screen, and when you go full screen on the main Zoom window, it automatically provides you a floating gallery window. And because like I have one right on my stream capture machine right now, is I go full screen and then I click on participants, chat, and the gallery's already there floating. They're all floating. I pull them off to another monitor, and then my full screen's my full screen. So now I'm streaming a full screen clean Zoom with the exception of the record icon. It's the only thing that's going out to the stream that I can't get rid of without shutting off the recording. And and I would say I don't know that I've gone and produced, it's familiar how to create a floating gallery window. And you may be right. I don't think I've never ever seen gallery end up in the second window of dual monitor mode. That's always like active speaker or share or spotlight. But so I don't think it's that window. I think it's the floating gallery. But the only way I know how to produce that is going full screen, getting that. And because like if I pulled out of full screen, I'll mess up the stream just for a moment. Yeah, actually it came back to the ribbon. So not 100% sure how it got produced. If anybody else has some guesses. Yeah, Lois. You're muted.
I'm wondering
Lois.
if we're overthinking this a bit. Isn't it true that if you have a Zoom gallery with non-video participants in it, when it streams out, it'll exclude those people with the cameras off? Is that not true?
That's true. Yeah, stream.
Then it
When
explains
Zoom
what he's
streams,
saying,
it doesn't
'cause
stream
his camera
names.
was off.
Yeah,
His camera was
yeah,
off.
but that wasn't. I don't think the challenge, unless I heard it wrong. He had a black window, like no video there, but that's not what was streaming. And nor did the black window have it had his name Zoom name, but it didn't have the my camera off name, because that's a bigger font in the center of the video space. And so his camera was on black. That's in his hardware. But I know his camera was on because it wasn't the big across the middle name. It was the little name label
But
that Zoom puts there when your camera's on.
exclude black screens normally?
Nope. No, it excludes in a stream video cameras that are off,
Okay.
not black windows. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So here's a pop-up question.
And don't forget George.
No, I haven't. I apologize for having you wait quite so long, George. Raise hand. Pretty popular feature, especially in interactive meetings, right? Especially the larger the meetings get, is you kind of have to go down that route so that they come to you, right? And it's easier to find. The bigger the meeting, the percentage of complainers rise, right? And it's just the percentage of feedback, like, how do you do this, how do you do that, can you turn down the music? It's like, no, because there's 800 people enjoying it and you have a volume button, but they still write the host and so forth. Same thing with raise hand. I don't know where it is, I can't find it. And you type it out and anyways, it's commonly nested under the reactions button, right? And so on your toolbar, you have the reactions button, and then there's all the, icons and so forth. The question really is, the pop-up quiz is, how can we get the raise hand icon on the toolbar? Or can we?
I think I have the answer, Papa Quiz. Okay, Pop,
right.
I think it's like this. I think in the settings for the meeting, we disable reactions. So the only reaction they can have is a reaction. Does that work?
Bingo. Yeah. So the reactions content of that toolbar button are two switches behind the scenes to, and I don't remember what they are, feedback and reactions or something like that. Anyways, there's two switches. If you turn both of those switches off, which make all the reaction icons kind of move fast, move slow, things are good, and then the clap hands and stuff as well. Turn those off, raise hand becomes an icon on the toolbar, and so you need no further explanation, with one exception. What's the exception? Why wouldn't they see the raise hand on the toolbar but under another button? Go ahead.
If you get your screen and you make your window really, really, really small, you lose some
Damn.
of those things and they go into to
Damn.
more. You know,
Lois,
Jeff, you shouldn't
Lois,
try to
Lois,
stop me with this stuff. I've
Lois.
been with you for how many?
Stump the chump is just not working.
And don't you
That's
call me
very
a chump.
true. But it's to know that that behavior exists, right? And so, if I here, let me share my Zoom window, and here's the toolbar. You can see my share toolbar too, right? I think I have
Yep.
all that on. But if I, if and when I shrink my Zoom window, see if I can. I don't have the toolbar always showing, but as I shrink it, you'll see that this more button gets really full of all kinds of options that some of them, chat and record and interpretation used to exist out there all by itself, like so. And so, if they have a monitor with low resolution, if they're trying to multitask and they do a half and half and they've shrunk their Zoom window, their experience is going to change. It's not that the options aren't there, but the things start getting tucked under that more button dynamically. And so to know, like, because when you're managing meetings and so forth and getting asked, hey, I can't find, you've got to be able to come up with the idea of why that might be and provide them some feedback. Go ahead, Lois.
One of the other things that I think every host or everyone who's going to run any meeting needs to do is to look at an iPad, an iPhone, an Android to find out where the features are and how you turn them on and off when they're hidden and all that stuff. Because, in Windows and Mac, sometimes I've been describing what I'm seeing on my Mac. The Windows person is not following because they don't have the same areas of function. So yeah. And one of the things we learned is you learn real fast that a certain shape on the screen means that person is not on a computer. And so having a problem, the first thing you say is, are you using an iPad or a cell phone or what? Makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah. And I most of my initial responses, Acton Help Desk is, what computer are you using? What device have you used to connect today? I mean, you've got to know that first. But, if you get the answer, an Android tablet or an iPad or a Mac, or, I've come in via a browser versus a client, a Zoom client, you'll wish that you've been there before and you're either somewhat or very familiar with those different platforms. Part of its layout changes for sure. I mean, my iPad is a pretty good experience, but it's a very different experience as far as where things are. And point well made. I think I lost George. Now I'm going to have to write him and apologize. I kept him waiting too long. Robert.
George mentioned in the chat that he had to leave. So.
Okay, yeah.
But just coming back to the different devices, Zoom support material is really good on identifying the different functions on different devices. Yeah. And just going through, having that support documentation open during a meeting just resolves most of our issues that come up, or questions that come up. But is it okay if we change topic now, or do we still continue? Okay, I have spent the week with testing microphones, mixers, and all sorts of other devices to collect sound. And one of my biggest issues occurred where I'm connecting into a laptop or a PC. Can you guys share your experiences with how you do it? Because I've been coming in via USB. I've been coming in via a jack onto the into the audio card onto the laptop, and the quality is different, and sometimes it's really totally unacceptable.
Yeah, it really starts with kind of what kind of microphone are you connecting to the device, and you know, if you, I would say if you want to avoid having issues, you know, like one mic might, you may go, oh, I could have plugged that in and it would have worked just fine. But, you know, several other mics, you know, condenser mics and dynamic mics and so forth, they, you know, the ones that need power, and some need less power, some need more power. You just get into the habit of having an audio interface in between the microphone and the laptop, be it a Mac or that. So I could almost hold one up for you, but it's getting shipped back right now, which is I have two MixPre devices, or even TechRise devices work, but you need a device that has good preamps in them to give you that enough power push for potentially a mic that doesn't have enough of its own, or even the laptop's USB can't provide enough for you either.
Okay, I've got past that stage. I'm just looking for the interface into the laptop, because with the interpretation, we've got a condenser connected to a mixer via XLR, all powered up properly, and we've got really good quality. It's the quality, I lose quality when coming from the mixer into the laptops.
Yeah,
And
but there's two ways to get from most mixers into a laptop. One is like they're 1/4-inch jacks out, right? And so you could do a 1/4 to 3.5 and go into the headphone jack or the mic jack of the laptop, which is not going to do you well at all in most cases. But what if you have a sound board or an audio interface, you want to go out the USB into the computer itself, so that it prepares that signal properly for the device receiving it. That's the USB track is definitely the way to go. If I go out of a soundboard, out of its left-right primary channels, I go into an audio device, an audio interface, and then USB into a PC or Mac. And David, Peter, what other thoughts or experiences do you have there?
So I had a long conversation with Mickey on office hours a while back as he was helping me set up. I like you. I have a MixPre 3 that my mic is hooked up to, and I've been running it one of two ways: either USB-C into my Mac, or, and what I'm using right now, I'm actually running. I have a very short, like maybe 10 inches long, 3.5 millimeter aux out from the MixPre into the Mic 1 interface on the ATEM. And then I had to play a little bit with the delay. And then it seems to be working fairly well. I certainly don't have any problems when I'm signed into office hours or using it for my day-to-day work. But again, you're right. I mean, USB-C works well. I have heard of some problems having issues with sometimes the USB bus in the laptop gets overloaded, and sometimes it will get caught crosswise. I was watching that. I mean, I'm hooked up to a giant Mac Pro, so I don't really too worry about that too often. But yeah. I know that it can happen on some of the earlier, pre-2021 laptops.
Yeah, and I've been on my MixPre 3 has, I power it with the USB. It's a Y splitted cable, right? So I need two USB ports to provide enough power to the one USB-C into the MixPre, but one of those is also data, right, where the actual data moves. That's my primary source of power, but I can reach down to my USB-C plug right now. I'll lose the audio, but I won't lose the MixPre, and you won't. Well, the way I'm hooked up, because my data is going back out USB-C instead of the aux out, but it will stay powered up because I have two. connected to the back as well that act as backup. But I'm not ideally set up. I'd rather be going out the aux and feeding a device if I really wanted to cover the loss of the USB for power, because if I lose the USB for power, I'm going to be losing my data flow as well.
You're also, I think you're also, because you're having to use 2 USB outs from your PC to power 1 USB-C in, I suspect you might also have a bus capacity issue that's also sitting there.
Well, I have separate buses on this motherboard that I installed.
Okay.
And but yeah, so I always split them, and or I can take the non-data side of that Y cable and I can plug it into a charging block that we use for our phones, and just have it and not it won't draw from my computer at all.
I haven't run into the problem of needing the split power, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If I can just say, I'm using a separate powered mixer, a Yamaha mixer, and we've got XLR condenser mics connected onto that. And the issue is when we come into the USB port on the laptop, and one of the things that I've noticed is because I'm using an Elgato Camlink to get my HDMI feed into a USB 3 port, there seems to be an issue because once I take the Elgato Camlink out, the sound quality is far superior.
You saturated the USB bus. Simple as that.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, it's
So
the same bus.
Okay.
Yeah, unless you have a computer. I have, Jeff, I have 2 separate cards that, so I have 2 sets of USB buses that are available to me to play with. So I would never let's put it this way, the Elgato will do a wonderful job of saturating things if you're not careful.
Well, but then the question is it's not a matter of physical ports. There you have port types as well, right? You have USB 2, which are going to have the black USB tongues in them, if you will. USB 3 and 3.1 and 3.2 all have blue, so you really have to kind of read specs on that. They might print it on the metal, but usually not. But you have to read the specs because the bandwidth differences on 3.1 and 3.2 are pretty dramatically improved over one another. And
well, I was thinking more of the Elgato saturating the bus, not the sound device, whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but if you because sound consumes a bundle less, right, bandwidth than video, and so if you that you had your fastest USB port in your computer not being used for the Elgato video, that's where I would put that, and then your audio, even on USB 2, should be fine, but it would be your next fastest port that I would go for.
That's why I've in the past couple times I've done that using an Elgato card. I normally run with an ATEM, one of the ATEM minis, but I've actually run the audio from the Mix Pre into the camera with a short cord, aux out into mic in on the camera. That will sync it through and put it all in one place, and that tends to keep everybody happy.
Yeah.
It's a little awkward because if you get too long a cable running from your soundboard to your camera, you can get some signal delays in there that only physics can solve.
Okay, appreciate that. That's really useful. I think you've put me onto the right track. I do have a laptop with 2 USB cards in it, so I'm going to try it on that and see if that will solve the problem. But from the mixer, I know the mixer out is USB 2.0, so I don't think I need anything higher than that on the laptop.
You don't. If the mixer end of it's 2.0, you don't need any faster port. You'd just be burning it at that point, but not using it. Yeah.
Yeah, the Elgato will just burn it. Isn't the one you're worried about?
Yeah, I wouldn't try to put video through a 2.0 port these days. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Thanks.
Okay. You're welcome. All right. I mean, and I've got a lot of thoughts around big meeting management and you know, how to, you know, maybe most securely, but I don't think I want to kind of just run top to bottom and, you know, burn everybody out on the conversation. I'd rather say, you know, let's set it up and say, we've got a large meeting, you know, 800 plus. how and let's just start talking about the features that you would consider implementing to manage in a secure fashion, all the way from front end invitations registration to active meeting management, if you will. But when we get to those features, let's talk, because every feature you turn on has a pro and a con, right? I mean, there's advantages and there's disadvantages, based on the type of meeting, the intent of the meeting, and so forth. And so if you're agreeable there, but at the same time, I want to pause for a second and see if there's, you know, kind of topically any other items that somebody has arrived with today that they really wish to have discussed and kind of figured out that we might be able to help with before we get on this track as well, or back on this track.
Pete's
It's where
hand
we
is
I got a
started.
question.
Yeah, Pete.
So you mentioned a while ago using Zoom client, which I'm using now, but you can also use it in a browser.
Yeah, I mean, as long as the host has scheduled the meeting to allow web-only participants to join, then there is that opportunity to join with a browser only without installing the software, which is like a Chromebook, for instance. I mean, it can be a computer that you know, the convenience process, you know, clicking on a link and it says, oh, do you want to open this? It opens a browser and said, do you want to open this in Zoom? And it just opens the client app and launches. Most people just think that's the kind of the only way to connect. Fact is you can say, no, don't open it in the client app. And usually if the host has allowed it, there's a link to connect via the web browser without the client application. Now, understand you're going to have a different experience coming in that way. So if I further explain what I'm talking about, I'll share the screen real quick. Look up this document. It's I did a search to get this Zoom client feature comparison, and it's the first result on Google. But what it does is it gets down here to this table, and this is what Robert was referencing earlier. Is
Can
they
you in a little
job,
bit, Jeff? Can you zoom in a little bit on this?
Yeah. And,
It's a really good doc.
Yeah, it's a great comparative doc of, you know, what platform. I wish there was a way I could fix this header so it would stay while I scrolled, but you know, Windows and Mac, Linux, Android and iOS, Chrome OS, web client, and PWA, and then if there's a checkbox, it supports it. But if you got a Chrome OS and web client, those are going to be similar because they're browser only. These are all things as far as scheduling, sharing your screen in a Zoom room, display upcoming meeting. These are all features that are not supported on a web-only connection. There's a bunch that are. Local recording, request remote control, language interpretation on, that was Chrome, yep. So language interpretation on Chrome, they say is not supported. Zoom apps.
They need a fixed header.
I know, it's tough. And then in-meeting controls, trying to manage a Zoom meeting connected via just a browser is not that it won't work, but you'll be pretty limited. Polls are just, you know, a major breakdown, pre-assigned participants and breakout rooms and so forth. So focus mode, immersive mode, remove a participant for inappropriate behavior can't be done from Chrome OS. So it's just a great doc that lets you, kind of set expectations of what your or your attendees experience will be when joining via a browser only.
Again, I would recommend anyone who's planning to host these meetings, go and try it out. See what it feels like. See
That's
what
right.
your experience is. It is very different. There's also another situation that is unusual, and that is a person who joins with the app, but not as a registered user. And I've only seen it happen once. It was very strange, but they weren't logged in. They were using the app, but they weren't logged in. I don't know how they got there.
Well, if it wasn't required that they were logged in, that
Yeah.
that
No, I mean, the app,
that's quite
app,
possible.
to turn on the app, you usually have to log in
No, you
one
don't.
way or another.
No, you don't.
Mm-mm. I
You
mean,
can turn on the app and then log
I
out.
can bring up my Zoom client as we speak,
And it just says join meeting.
and just click on my profile picture and tell it to sign out, and it'll just sign out. It won't take me out of the meeting. It won't quit me. If I joined another meeting, either on this or another one, but use the same Zoom account, it'll log me out of the first one. It'll sign me out. It won't take me out, but it'll sign me out, and it'll take the priority. So, yeah, it's very doable. When you're monitoring multiple meetings, if that's your role or whatnot, you see people do that. The Zoom OSC client, an SDK type client, can run multiple instances. You can actually, I think, rename your Zoom executable to Zoom 1, Zoom 2, Zoom 3, and they'll launch as separate instances, and that works as well. There's
That works on a Windows machine. That's a Windows hack.
It is, yeah.
Hey,
so, David. Yeah, David.
So something weird is going on here. Robert sent me a message because he. Oh, God.
I put three or four of them.
Do a search in your participants list, David, with that option spacebar or Alt 255 PC or Mac, and you'll see that Robert will be the find on that invisible character.
No, wait. Okay, so I was listening before. I really was. So
Are you on a Mac?
Yeah, no. So I got that. I figured that out. So now,
okay.
Did he just put just spaces there?
Not regular spaces, because it strips out soft spaces.
So because I couldn't get the spaces in before. How did you get the spaces?
So the option spacebar on a Mac or the Alt 255 on a PC is called a hard space, and it's still just as invisible, but it's a real character that won't get stripped out by programmers. Programmers use stuff called trims, and it removes soft space, if you will.
So can someone see? I just put some spaces in.
You are incorrect. Name, I could put in the space when I clicked rename. They were removed when it stuck me back in the program. So I do not have an invisible space in front of my name, even though I put them there, because it's not recognizing the max invisible space.
No, is it? Interesting.
Let me.
Robert, I thought you were really special or something, but you just have extra space.
I've just been listening to Jeff.
He's spaced out on Windows.
So I have Jeff MacBook Pro. I did. I ran it. I don't use my Mac all too often, but I've run into this before in the sense that I had a hard time replicating my Alt 255 on the PC, which is super easy to pull off.
As long as you have a numeric keyboard, of course.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I can tell you that dots are recorded before alphabets too, I think. See where I am in your participants list.
Right. No, so like I said, I use the asterisk and that pumps them to the top. But I just want to know about this non-breaking space.
Yeah.
Lois, your period did not pop you up to the top. If you change it to an asterisk, it probably
So it
would.
can-
No, sorry,
an
I'm sorry, I'm
L?
sorry. No, I'm sorry. It did. I was looking in chat. It popped you up in the participants panel.
Okay, so I am a co-host, so I'm already near the top. The question is my L above or below the right letters in the co-host?
It's below Ray,
Because he has an asterisk.
right?
Yes, correct.
So he's
Is
more
it
special
above
than
David?
you are.
Oh, never mind. David can't answer that. Can somebody else
Yeah.
answer that? Am I above David?
You keep jumping up and down depending on whether your mic is muted or not.
You are absolutely right. I forgot all about that.
Kirsten, you got to jump in here. You're just sitting there. Come on.
Change your name, Kirsten. Put something weird in
Wait,
front
is
of
it
your
Kirsten
in
or
front of your
Kristen?
K.
Am I saying your name
Kirsten.
wrong? No, it's Kirsten.
Kirsten. Osterkamp.
Yeah, come on, Kirsten.
So-
Put
It's
in a
all
hard
fine.
break.
I'm not having a ton of luck there. I'm going to test. I can get the right option space bar to, like, if I do the left option space bar on my Mac, it pops up the smart finder, whatever they call that on a Mac. When you search, I usually do command space.
Spotlight.
Well, my
Spotlight.
left alt space spotlight. My left alt space creates the same result as command space, but my right alt space will put a space, but it's not holding it as a hard space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit. It's called, it's called streaming. Yeah, I don't think I have to I can log off and log back in. My thought is, if I actually do a command or alt space in my profile versus I'm in the meeting already and rename, that it may hold better there. But I don't think if I change.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Just as a matter of interest, can a co-host change your name as the host?
Yeah. Co-host. I don't know. Try it.
Ray's a
Robert,
co-host.
You are a co-host, Robert. I believe a co-host can change just like a host can.
Change the
No.
host name.
I can't change
was
the
the
host.
No,
question.
you can't
No,
change the
you
host
cannot change
name,
the
but
host
you can change other people's names.
I've got to run, Jeff. Sorry.
No problem. Good seeing you, Ray.
Hey, Ray. There last night. Come join us every Thursday. I've put my little ad up, so I'll get more people. So how am I in the participants list?
It doesn't look like you have any spaces at the beginning.
It didn't hold them. So that didn't.
Yeah. We'll have to try to conquer that working equivalent.
So Jeff, the other day when we talked, we came up with some ideas to think about and talk about and practice and try out. Do you have that little list of what we were thinking about?
Oh, you thought I was writing. Did I lead you to believe that you think I
Yes,
was
you
writing
did.
those notes?
Yes, you.
I was actually eating breakfast. So it was one of them was can you direct message somebody in the waiting room, and the answer is no. But I think you can once you initiate a global message. That's the thing. So if I were to send you to the waiting room, I can't just direct message you, but I can send a message to the waiting room, but you can individually reply. And I believe then I can individually reply to you in the waiting room, but I can't initiate a private. So let's put that to the test. Let me I'm
Okay,
going to
I'll go away.
send, let's see, I'll send Robert there. I've got to remove co-host first. Okay, Robert, you're going to the waiting room. And our favorite tester, Lois, is going to the waiting room. All right, so now I've got 2 people in the waiting room. I can, in my chat, I can now chat to the waiting room participants. And so I can say, hello, everybody in the waiting room. That's the only option I have at the moment. And then I'll say, Robert, direct message me now. Okay, Lois did as well, and Robert did, or Robert hasn't yet. So Lois is there. So I'm going to, in my chat window here, I'm going to share this so you can see what I'm doing. In my chat window, I sent, hello, everybody in the waiting room. Lois from the waiting room replied, hi from Lois. I can click on Lois's name and it says to Lois in the waiting room.
Mhm.
Hello to Lois only from Jeff. And then Lois, Robert. He says he can only reply, do not have a choice as to who. Yeah, you're replying to me, the host who wrote it. So I can click on him. It says to Robert directly and indicates he's in the waiting room. And I'll say hello to Robert only.
By the way, for
Well,
co-hosts, I can only chat the entire waiting room. I cannot chat individuals.
so
Even on the response back.
I don't know.
can they? I wonder if they reply to you. Go ahead and send them a waiting room message and see if they can reply to you as a co-host. And if both of you and I see it, I saw your message to them. Reply to me because I'm
All
the
right,
host.
Lois just wrote back to me, but I still only have. Oh, if I click on her name.
Right.
Yeah, they don't end up in the. I don't think. Well, they actually, once you start writing them, then they do end up in the list. But initially, they're not in the list. It's just interesting. I wonder here, David. I want to send you there real quick, and I want to see if you disappear from the list. And if you're in fact gone, I'm going to search for you here first before I send a global message. See if that circumvents the behavior there. So, David, I'll remove co-host for a moment. To the waiting room. Okay. David is there. So now in the list, he's still, well, and I'm assuming this is probably a result that he was in the meeting. And so it still shows his name, but now he's in the meeting in the waiting room. And so I can direct message David in the waiting room. And I think on a new entry, I don't think that's there, but you have to double check, but I'm pretty positive they're not there until they come in the meeting at least once. All right, I'll let everybody back in.
I did a print screen of what I saw, if anyone wants to see it.
Sure.
I did too, but
Hang
I'll
on,
let you
let
show
me
yours.
get you promoted here.
So, Lois, did you see the message that Jeff sent to me?
I saw all the messages that Jeff sent. I replied, but he never answered me. He once sent one direct to me. Did you? I think. Let me go look at that.
Yeah, when we first started, so I wrote, let's see.
Said hello, everyone in the waiting
Hello,
room.
yeah.
And then
Hello,
you
everybody
said
in the waiting
Robert,
room.
direct
You said
message.
hi from Lois, me to the waiting room. Robert, direct message me now. I was asking him to direct message me. He wrote me, I can only reply. I do not have a choice as to who. Lois wrote, can you chat with me? And that was direct to the hosts. And when Zoom says the word host, so it says Lois to hosts with an S, two S's, that's host and co-host, should have been that. And then I wrote Lois. I said, hello to Lois only from Jeff. And then she said, let me in.
Okay, I didn't see your message to Lois, so the direct message works.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then I wrote to Robert later, or David. David was the last direct message. I said direct message to David, and nobody but David should have seen that. And what happens is, as well as I noticed, so I sent David there because I wanted to see if I hadn't written him a message yet, but I wanted to see if he would remain in the list of people to direct message in the waiting room, because once Lois and Robert replied to the host, you became a selectable name in the waiting room that I could write to, where I believe but I think that's a result of you had been in the meeting versus you just are joining the meeting and your first stop was the waiting room. I don't believe you end up in the list. I mean, if somebody wants to disconnect and rejoin the meeting, I'll confirm this, but I'm pretty sure a new entry doesn't show up as a individual direct chat option for me until you've been in the meeting and get sent to the waiting room. But I'd love to confirm it if somebody's
I'll go
willing.
out. Mhm.
Okay.
And could you make me a co-host? I would like to see what you're seeing as well. And you said all hosts and co-hosts can see this, right?
Well, you won't now because it's history, I mean.
No, but he's gone out to the waiting room.
Oh, yeah. You'll be able to see his rejoin. Yeah.
Thank you.
If anybody else wants that view, just let me know and I'll make you co-host as well.
I'd like to see it, Jeff.
Was that Peter?
That was somebody else. It wasn't me.
Who said that? Who asked? David? No, David's already co-host.
I can see Robert is there.
I think
Or
maybe
maybe
Pete.
it was Pete.
I said it.
Pete.
I said it.
Okay.
I don't see any messaging capabilities at all. Oh, wait a minute. There it is.
Scroll all the way up to the top.
Okay, so if I click on message, then I can put a chat at the bottom. It opens up the chat, says waiting room participants, and I can put a message. Hi
Yeah,
there.
but so you're writing
Send a message, okay, Jeff?
You're writing well, let me just tell you, you should also see this, confirm this. You and I can write a global message to everybody in the waiting room, but I didn't know I could do this. I can also write Robert, who's entry to the meeting right now. I can write him directly in the waiting room. That's in the list of people.
In the bottom, it's the very bottom one
chat
on my
list.
chat list. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay,
I can establish a direct message to somebody without them ever coming to the meeting. That's cool to know.
I'm seeing that also.
Yeah, cool.
So I have sent a message to the waiting room participants. Can all the people here see that in the chat, or is it only co-hosts that can see that? Kirsten cannot see it. Can you see it, Jeff?
All the hosts, co-hosts can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, Robert wrote back to us saying knock knock. Yeah, Pete can see it because he's a co-host right now. Yeah, so let's go ahead and let Robert in.
So here's an interesting tidbit. I had selected Robert in the waiting room in the message, but I hadn't yet sent it. And after you admitted him, I then sent a message to Robert and it says, this person is not in the meeting.
Yeah,
Now, he will
yeah,
probably appear on the list with his own name, but not with, yeah, he's there with his own name, but not
yeah,
with,
yeah.
they're
Because the
separate.
destination changed. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's
Now,
kind of like when I get direct message during a real meeting and it takes me a few minutes to see it and reply, they're already gone, you know, and they were asking or saying goodbye or something like that. So yeah, they're just, the
so
target's no longer there.
Robert, in your chat, is it mostly empty with just maybe one thing, or is there nothing in it? Or do you see all of the chats from before you left the meeting and
No,
came back?
it's completely empty.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the message I got from Jeff was to all participants or from the host.
Yeah, that was from, technically it was from Lois.
Well,
Oh,
But,
okay.
there was one to everyone, and then there was ones to you, and I'm not sure if you can tell the difference in there.
Yes, you can, because it says a message from host to participants in waiting room. And then when it's to me, it says message from host to me.
Cool.
the only thing that he can't distinguish is which host sent it.
No.
It will just always be the host. It won't be who specifically.
Hey, Kirsten.
By the way, a question just came up for me. Is there a possibility in Zoom to change the settings that new people could see the chat which happened before, or I mix it up with Teams? I think in Teams it's possible to change it, but in
Yeah.
Zoom, not
Zoom,
really,
they
I
don't.
think.
The
Yeah.
most that you could do is the host could open the chat, select all, which takes all the messages, and then put it in a chat and post it. And that's
Yeah.
the only way to get
Reposting
that.
we know very well as host and co-hosts. Yeah. When new people come in, and yeah, just wondered.
Yeah, no options thus far for that.
And the save chat, I believe if you are in a meeting, you go out, you come back, you say save chat, you go out, you come back, you save chat, you'll end up with 3 text documents at the end of the meeting rather than having anything combined.
Goodbye, David. Thanks for coming. Yeah, they are. They're all kind of individual sessions, if you will. Okay. All right. Well, as far as just I'll see how quick we can make this. Is let me start for on Saturdays I manage a meeting that has 900 plus people in it, and my standard practices are part of this will be my personal professional standard practices would be, and then what we're actually doing, because I got shut down from the customer, I'll bring those out as well. But those are usually driven by convenience by the customer versus best practices, if you will. So I mean, even right now, so I'll share my screen. Can you see that? Try to remember how to turn on. There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. So under my security icon, these are my standard practices, and that is, I don't lock the meeting. I leave the waiting room on always. I realize that at times that can become quite the chore, letting people in individually or groups at a time. I mean, we don't wait for 900 people in the waiting room to show up, to admit all. Normally it's, chunks arrive at a time, and you can just do admit all. Doing it one person at a time, on a large meeting isn't practical. But the advantages of it in smaller meetings anyways is you can, I usually ask, in this meeting in particular, often Ray is the one managing the waiting room. And the more people, once you get over that 25 or 49 people on a single page, then it gets a little bit more challenging. But I just ask them to follow the attendee in, which basically means admit that person, knowing that the behavior is they're going to end up at the bottom of the gallery, if you will. The end of the gallery is a new entry, and just make sure that they arrive correctly. They don't turn on their video with, garbage or for some reason come in unmuted, which they shouldn't, but things happen, and maybe somebody changed or didn't set a setting, and follow them in, or do groups, and then just do a group at a time. I don't hide profile pictures normally, and we already went over the focus mode, that focus mode can do that pretty quickly and easily as well, and just kind of go into spotlight management. Allow participants to share screen. I don't do it. People who have in an ideal circumstance, much like office hours, is you make them co-hosts and let them share screen. Sharing, we've done this before, is if I allow somebody, Peter, if you have something you can share real quick, I'm going to let you share.
And I'm gonna. Yeah, I can do that. I don't normally, oddly enough, I don't normally share screen. I just switch to a different computer with the agent.
Yeah, you and me both. But you're going to be able to share something because I've turned on allow participants to share screen. But that's not an only Peter can share something. That's everybody in this meeting right now can share. So that's why I never turned it on.
It's not quite right. Something's not right then, because I'm getting the message you cannot start screen share while the others are participating.
Yeah, I have that limited. I was sharing already, I forgot. And I said I only let the host start when somebody else is sharing. So now you can share.
Okay. All right. And let's see, what's something good? I'll just share that.
Okay, so you're sharing, and I go, okay, I just temporarily wanted to turn that on so you could share. Now I'm going to unallow sharing screen now that you're sharing, but it killed your share.
Yep.
Right. And so that's not a valid momentary switch to use, because it kills all the other shares. It kills active shares. And so instead, I usually have this, where are you? Oh, there you are. So Peter, I'm gonna make you a co-host now, because you need to share something. Now share again. Okay. And the moment you start sharing, I'm going to remove co-host from you.
Right.
Now I'm going to remove co-host, and you're no longer a co-host, but your share stayed on screen.
Right.
Okay. And realize I can kill that. As the host, I can stop it, or you can stop it. Kirsten, I think you said something, but you are muted if you were talking to us.
How do you stop his share? By sharing yourself as a host? It's switching it?
Yeah, well, because I'm the host,
there's a
while
button
he's sharing, there's a top toolbar that says there's a active share. There's a little drop down arrow, and it doesn't say, most of the time it doesn't say stop the share, it says stop remote control. But if you stop that, it'll kill the share. And I think the remote control is because I have remote control feature turned on my account. So you can manage that, but giving quick co-hosts so they can turn their share on, go ahead and while they're sharing and doing their thing, remove co-host is just a temporary switch. And that really, that thought of turn it on while they do it, turn it off, let them continue is the same thing. I'm going to carry it on. I saw your hand, Lois, bear with me. Is also, it says like under allow participants to share screen. So I don't do that. Allow participants to unmute themselves. Mm-hmm. Now, in big meetings, I don't. I uncheck that, and I'm going to. I just unchecked it, and now I'm going to mute Peter and mute Kirsten. Neither one are co-hosts, and I want you to both try to unmute and talk to me. Can't do it. All right, so I'm going to, let's just try to keep this kind of real world. I'm spotlit, I'm the speaker, and so a guest has been invited to raise their digital hand to ask the host a question or the moderator a question. And so Peter has his hand up, and I'm about to spotlight him, but not until I first click on unmute, and then I add them as a spotlight. Let me see if anybody else.
That would be a good use for the Stream Deck controls you were talking about earlier.
It's absolutely, it's a perfect use for the Stream Deck without a doubt. Looks like everybody, over the weeks and weeks of Zoom Test Kitchen have all said allow the host to unmute you. So, but what common happens is you end up with not an unmute button, but a request ask to unmute button, right? And those are the people, if you don't have the feature turned on during their login of allow the host to unmute you, everybody will be asked to mute. But if you have that on, you'll have kind of a mix of people. But here's the main thing on this. If you want to lock down 900 people in a meeting from not being able to unmute, I think that is the very best idea, without a shadow of a doubt. But then, that the speaker is going to invite people to ask a few questions, right? Because they've paid to be there. It's special to be next to, the speaker and talk to them directly. And so they raise hands. Just know that even though you've chosen not to allow participants to unmute themselves, as long as the host asks you to unmute, you will unmute. But you won't be able to unmute first. You'll have to be responsive to my request. And so knowing that, I get to keep everybody muted, ask, spotlight. By the time I get them spotlit, they've said yes to the unmute request. It works really, really slick. Same thing with, I can't turn on your video, period. So but I can request it, right? So if I don't allow you to start your video now, same thing, I've turned that off. Robert, go ahead and kill your video. And now I can unmute you, which you are unmuted, but
yes, I am unmuted, but my video.
You can't start it. But I am not seeing request to unmute you to turn on your video. That's not expected. I fully anticipated. Is that only under? No. That's really bizarre.
But you have it turned off in security.
Yeah, but but I don't think it's about that, because that affected me, the host, and I shouldn't be. So that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it was about that switch, but it doesn't do that with audio.
So if I have, Jeff, it's
what's
in
that?
Participants. It's in participants.
It is now because I turned the video check mark back on. but now I'm gonna. All right, so right now security says you can mute yourself and you cannot start your video. Now go look under participants.
He has to have his video off.
Yeah, Robert, go ahead and turn your video back off. And I
You are
have
right,
no
it went away.
ability. Yeah, it went away, which is super interesting to me because he is muted, and we as co-host can unmute him or ask him to mute. But if the video part's turned off, I would have thought the behavior should be the same. If I want to ask him to turn his video on, let me ask him, but don't let him turn it on. But they actually disable the request to turn your video on, even from the host.
So you
That's a
would
new
need
find for me.
to click on security start video, click on his ask to start video, then click on security don't start video. And hope nobody else notices in the meantime.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
sort of like sharing by making you a co-host.
Yeah, no, I didn't realize this
Let's let him
limitation was there
finish.
because I
Let's
don't do
start video,
this as
okay?
much as I do the mute unmute, but I would be apt to exercise the co-host for a temporary talker with video,
If
only
the
because
if the video is off, can I make him a co-host, and will that allow him to turn on his video?
yeah, that I'm confident. So it's off now, and go ahead and Robert, turn off your video. Lois, if you can't
You
make
can
him
make
a
him a
co-host.
co-host,
Yeah.
I can't.
I'll make Robert a co-host, and he is, and now Robert should be able to turn his video on, and he can
And
even
his
unmute
mic.
himself. Yeah, he circumvents all that at that point.
Yeah, because I can turn my video off and on even though you've got it locked.
Yeah, I wish they'd match that behavior between the microphone and the video so that I, the host, can request to turn on your mic, request to turn on your video, allowing me to keep the entire rest of the meeting muted and video muted as well, without the risk of people taking advantage of that moment. Because I really don't desire, I know I have to sometimes, I don't desire to make somebody a co-host just so they can, do something. Now, once you are unmuted and your video is on, I can remove co-host and you're still on and you can still talk. So it's that momentary thing like sharing. So I could make you that, let you get everything turned on, remove that, you can continue to talk. So, okay, go ahead, Robert. Oh, can you not?
Oh, no, I
No.
can. No, I
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
I unmuted you, it's okay.
Thank you. Just a word of caution here. If you're using interpretation, that option also blocks the mics off the interpreters. So they get completely cut off. And
That's a great point. Yeah. There's a new feature coming or just got released for interpreters. Interpreters can now hear the base language or they can hear any other channel that an interpreter is outputting to because they may not understand the base language, but they understand the Spanish that's being translated, and then they can translate Spanish to their channel, right? That's is that accurately read?
That's a convoluted way to go from Spanish to Portuguese, English to Spanish to Portuguese.
Yeah, it's in technical terms, we call it a relay or a pivot language. You jump from one language to the other. And they've switched it on. We've been testing it. It is super cool. It's really nice. And there's also a trick that we've been playing with. You can actually listen to your booth partner, because one of the challenges...
that's what I was saying. Like if you're both doing Spanish, they didn't, like Spanish A couldn't hear Spanish B previously, but now they're able to tune in to their partner, right?
But it's not a feature, it's a trick. Because
really?
The way it works is that if I am on the Spanish channel and I have my mic muted and I want to listen to my booth partner who is interpreting into Spanish, I have to change my mic language to the second language, to say, for example, English. And then Spanish pops up and I can listen to my booth partner. But the problem, and I call it a trick and not a feature, because the interpreter who, if I take over, I'm on the wrong channel if I need to go into Spanish. And so I've talked and instructed interpreters not to use it because they just mess it up.
It's really hard to know that you're speaking to the wrong channel, right? When it becomes your turn to interpret.
It's not intuitive in that way, no.
Yeah. All right. Good to know. Okay. Did you have? Oh, that was your main thing. Is that the muting affects the translators. So translators, I am trying to think of the workflow. They arrive, and I managed this meeting that we had. I think we had 5 languages, but the production company I was working with had prearranged with the interpretation company that prior to their arrival, their name had to be Spanish interpreter 1, Spanish interpreter 2, and they named themselves. So I knew exactly who and what they were going to be doing upon arrival. 1, for the waiting room, it was super helpful. 2, once I started them assigned, in the interpretation channels, I assigned them accordingly. And so that was super helpful. And they were, there were no issues. I would have thought somebody would have forgot or this or that. None of them. They all arrived with all the right names and full base. So it's great.
There is a reason behind that. Is when you take interpreters from a translation agency, the translation agency doesn't want to give you the contact details. And that's
so you
why
don't
they
poach
use
them.
exactly. That's why they use all of these additional email addresses. The other thing about interpretation that very few people know is that if the interpreter is logged into his Zoom account and that account has been defined in the scheduling meeting, then the interpreter will go directly into his language booth. You don't have to allocate them. You only have to allocate if you don't have them predefined when you're scheduling and they're not logged in to that specific Zoom account.
Yeah. Because now, like, my interpretation is always available in meeting, and I can just do it on the fly, and or if I'm scheduling a new meeting and I know who they are, then I can find them. But we didn't used to be able to turn it on without at least one definition, right? And so I used to define myself and then just change it in meeting, but we don't even have to do that anymore. So that works good. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Protect their interpreters' value to them and so forth. But I guess I would have them, have like a naming convention. You probably do, right? Provide them a naming convention that says, I'd like their name to begin with an underscore and then be, in the Spanish interpreter 1, so now it's sorting for you and landing. It would be helpful both, because I do lose interpreters throughout a meeting when things are moving around, people are coming and going and so forth. I lose their order. They don't stay up top unless we were to, insert a character up front as well.
Or search for interpreter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you can. That's one of the big benefits of their naming convention is if there's always, INT or interpreter, you can get the whole group. Absolutely. And it doesn't matter where they are, but it's just that one more step. Sometimes you get a chat message, a direct message that says, hey, we can't hear Spanish. And you have to go find, the Spanish interpreter to make sure their mics aren't muted or, something like that. And or quickly tune into Spanish, confirm what this person has told you. And in fact, not there. But any real company, Robert or whoever he delegates to, you're listening to everything at some point or another, knowing that those, you know, channels are live and so forth. I've come across an interpreter twice, and it was like they were afraid to get started. And it's like, start talking already. It's like they were like too nervous or something. It was weird. But so,
What I
they
do
are.
is I put a underscore before their names and then group them by language, so that always keeps them at the list, because the problem
Yeah, the
is you get
pairs are together and all.
and they're at
Yeah,
the top of the list, so that they
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, and then you can see if any two microphones are open at the same language channel, and
Yeah,
of course prior to the commencing the event, you need to ask who's starting. That's one thing. And secondly, who do I mute if both of you start talking at the same time?
very
Once
true.
you've agreed on that, you just knock them straight off. And they're talking and they get a message on the screen, your microphone is muted, and they know that something's gone wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice for, you know, I mean, I don't know, you know, the interpretation through and through before Zoom, but it would be nice in their own video to have like a little tally light, right? To let them know who's active and or who should be or something like that. But
Jeff,
anyways,
the amount of sweat, blood, and tears I have lost trying to explain this to Zoom is unbelievable. To be
yeah,
very, very honest with you, when we have events, I actually have the interpreters on a different system, and I pipe their sound into Zoom onto the different channels.
oh
And
wow,
that in that way they can communicate with each other on a big platform, and we're getting the interpretation coming through to Zoom. The only
yeah,
tricky part is you need to get the consent of the client to pull everything out so that the interpreters can see it and hear it. So there's a personal data there issue.
yeah, yeah.
Jeff,
I can imagine.
I noticed NDI through my cell phone has a tally light. I'm not sure if it does, if it's connected to Zoom.
I don't think it will carry through because I think what you're talking about is like NDI cam, and the NDI cam from either NewTek or Sierra or Sienna, both have like tally support inside their camera NDI broadcasters, but so the system can tally back, but I don't believe it carries it out into Zoom. All right, Lois, you have your hand.
So back to talking about, in general, big meetings. I am wondering, Jeff, you do a lot of big meetings. How much scripting do you do of what you're going to have to say? How much run of show do you do as to what's going to happen in what order? How much problem solving do you have set aside so you can just quickly go and look at it? I know I don't run big meetings, but just for little meetings, I have pictures of the face of the different devices so I can at least tell people, oh, you're on an iPad? Well, then you do this, and then that will appear, and it's in the upper left-hand corner and stuff like that. So how much paperwork, text, pictures, how much of that do you use when you're planning and running a big meeting?
I'm trying to pull something up as a example. If I can find one real quick. Often I don't have one of shows locally because they're pretty much a living document, and so it ends up being like a shared, or something like that. Oh, here's a local copy of one. So if I were to share this, here's here's an example of just a quick glance at run of show detail. Timings and durations and who it's going to be, and then over here are the notes, and depending on when I get it, there may be real explicit, spotlight, remove spotlight, dual spotlight, things like that. So more of an action. It's like my column of actions for rows. So there's a lot of detail there. Run of shows are usually, the first thing that gets started, the last thing that gets finished, in that sense. But there's, with the customer, who may be coming on, speakers that are coming in on different devices and so forth. That's really kind of the whole purpose of the rehearsal day, which could be, 1, 2, 3 days ahead of time. Sometimes it's the morning of the afternoon's event. But that's where we, have them, we do their lights and sound and all that check, but I'll also test the sharing, test the remote control. Well, we determine, do you want us to drive your slides? Do you want to drive your slides? What tool we're going to use, get them set up with that tool, get them comfortable with that tool, and then just practice through that. Rehearsals are not commonly, we did a couple weeks ago, they talked the entire thing. It's like, are you kidding me? But that shouldn't have been, we shouldn't have had to be a part of that kind of a rehearsal. We're just, getting into it, getting out of it, we'll launch the slides, things like that, but not having to hear the entire content. They should be because that's just timing, right? They have 20 minutes. They want to make sure it's 20 minutes. That's not our deal or our concern. But needless to say, they vary. But rehearsals are, that's training part. There's often, quick tricks like we had it was a Stryker Medical, did a lot of different meetings for them, and they the executive assistant to the C-level, she owned the slide deck. She wanted to drive that slide deck. She was the one most familiar with, while he's talking, so forth. And that took production out of our hands. And that's always tough because it's going to be a share. And so, we're going from one speaker, maybe speaker and their slides, to unspotlighting, unsharing. Now we can't kick the next share into gear. We have to just simply rely on she's ready to do that instead in this case. And so that was, that's a point of nervousness. And so when it came to, and then there were cutaways. She was sharing the deck and driving it for her boss, but then there were moments during the presentation where I had to go to video. And so it went from her share, his spotlight, to both of those had to go away, and I had to get spotlighted, which was my vMix feed of the movie. And so, but it wasn't all up to me. It was me and her and the cleanliness. So I can kill and replace the spotlight, with a button press and start with a button press, but I can't kill a share with Zoom OSC, and so I could do it by hand. But instead, I just chose to, I think it was Alt S, that stops a share on a Mac, and I just taught her the shortcut to killing the share. And I said, so when we're going off the PowerPoint to a video, I just need you to, as quickly as you can, hit Alt S and boom. And I say at the end of the day, and it happened a lot, it worked out way smoother than I thought. So they just kind of getting those kinks, identified. You have to anticipate them and then kind of train and practice to them. Did that help answer what you asked?
And these questions I ask aren't always just for me. Isn't this being streamed? Aren't we being watched by 1 million people in the world?
Yeah, but you're the asker. I don't think that you're the only listener, but you're the asker.
Yeah, well, different people use different methods of figuring out what's going on. And when you've got a small meeting or the meeting that we're having. There's 500 people, but they're all basically the same audience. And so the host has a host script that she reads at certain times.
Yep.
And then so she's saying, okay, now other people can clerk host the meeting, whatever. And so we'll just hand them the script and the timing, and then anybody. It's like, okay.
That's right.
I think if I were running it, I would have a few more pieces of paper there.
I had to have somebody cover for one of my Saturdays a couple weeks ago, and you know, the week before I was doing the week before. Naturally, I just took down all the settings, and I wrote just kind of all the notes and things that are going through my head and this and that, and sent her a long document, but it had exactly everything under the security piece, the options under the chat, the option, just cut all the config pieces, and then the timing to turn on record and the waiting room and so forth. And that, there's got to be some good structure. I mean, winging it doesn't usually produce success. So anyways, that some of the things we've been talking about with this group in particular is recording, for instance. Here, these are just issues, looking for solutions, and so the record got started after her hello and to the first speaker, and nobody loves that. No, that's for sure. And so I said, gave them the option. But what happens is, when there's two moderators, me and one other person, and normally when I arrive, this person is a total early bird, and they hit pause or stop on the record, and it just lends itself to forgetting to turn it back on, and because the closer you get to go live, the more pressure that's present, and the risk is higher. So there's actually an option in the back end portal to take away the option, even from the host, to stop or pause the recording. Just turn it off. They can't do it. It auto starts. Not even the host can stop or pause it. When the meeting starts, it starts to record. When the meeting ends, it stops, period. And so, we've turned that on. Waiting room, I got outvoted from the boss. Said, no, let's get it turned off. And what happened was, here's the trigger. So what went wrong? And that was doing her presentation, and pop-up notifications kept popping up. And it was about the waiting room. Somebody had entered, and hey, do you want to admit them or not? Why? She was made a co-host. There's no reason in the world for her to be a co-host, to a degree, for sharing, that switch of sharing, but that in with this customer hasn't taken place yet. So I told her why it was happening. We were in the meeting, so I just disabled the waiting room, which I hate doing, but I had to cure her problem because she was the only one having the problem. It was a real problem for everybody because her computer, and it really is computer specific, graphics card or whatnot, it's one that produces the gray boxes on top of her shares. And so every time it would happen, they couldn't see the message, but they could see the gray box. And so it cured. So in that meeting, I killed the waiting room. and so I explained to her, I said, you're seeing it because you're a co-host. You're seeing it because your computer happens to be one of those producers of those gray boxes, and so with that, there's you can turn those gray boxes off. A couple of different ways that I'm aware of is when you share. Here, I'll share. I think I can show you this. I'll share. There's Robert. That's my Zoom window. I'm sharing. And if you have a computer that produces it, one of two things. You can go to the share and do not optimize your share. Uncheck optimize for video clip, and it will not produce the gray boxes. But in her case, I ask her every week, do you have video in this week's deck? And if there's video, you have to optimize. Otherwise, it's going to be horrible, right? And so you're stuck with, you have to optimize. Well, if you have to optimize, then you go and you optimize and they share and away you go. But then what you do is, you see this toolbar up here? Then you have them go down here to hide floating meeting controls. And if they're a gray box producer, either Control Alt Shift H or select it off the menu, you can select that and it will hide those boxes. But it takes like 1 to 3 seconds for them to go away. It's not a really fast process. And so, there weren't any perfect solutions. I wish you'd just get a new computer. But needless to say, I haven't figured out what computers do it and why exactly. I heard at one point there was some registry hack in Windows that does it. I don't know that Macs do it. I kind of think they're Windows machines, but not all Windows machines. Yeah, Lois.
Question on the reason that announcements were popping up that people were in the waiting room. I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, that you can enable the waiting room but not have pop-ups on your screen. It just is in the participants list. Is that true?
I don't know.
Robert is saying yes.
I think that's true, and with the same, you can enable that, and you can also enable that horrible sound that you get when.
Yeah, the sound definitely. I know that's confusing. Like you can set the sound to ding everybody, or just ding the hosts and co-hosts, and or don't ding at all. Are you saying, is it a back-end setting for the 0 announcements or alerts, or is it in the client settings? I'm gonna
A place where you can turn off notifications. I wish there were a place. How's that?
Well, I mean, there's lots of notifications we can manage in the client, for chat and so forth, but I wasn't aware of one for. So there's an edit options for waiting room. Where should they go? Allow participants in the waiting room to reply to hosts and co-hosts. Who can admit them? And so nothing about alerts there. And then the customize is simply output when you're there. What do you see? I'm not seeing anything on the back end.
So here's another thought. If the person is sharing their screen, if instead of using the whole window, they share a portion of it, then you can make it not be in the place where those little flashy things are going to come.
Well, that would be true, except her entire deck, like every slide, is animated. And when you're doing a portion of a screen, and here's where we're a couple of things. The animated piece is a part of it. The other part is the new slide control feature, so that like we're heading towards, hey, she's just sending me the deck as a backup. I'm not loading it right now, but I'm going to be eventually loading it. And then I need to give her presentation control. The only way for the Zoom's presentation control to recognize that there's a slide deck open is we tested that it can't be in window mode. It has to be in full screen mode. And that would also be an additional challenge, which is unfortunate. Yeah, Robert.
I was wrong. The notification that I was thinking about was for upcoming meetings and not for people in the waiting room.
Gotcha. All participants to join. Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I'm not finding anything on the back end for sure. So I think you found the same thing. And there's really not, under all the settings of the client, there's not a primary group, right? General video, audio, share screen. There's not really an area there for, I mean, it might be under general, but it's not. Yeah. And then the only other thing I could think of would be, okay, what if somebody is, let me take my Mac, who is, where did it go? Jeff's MacBook Pro. I'm going to send it to the waiting room. Yeah, so while the waiting room is there and active, yeah, there's no, I thought, well, will a setting become available, right? Something like that, because the waiting room is open and active. Ask all unmute participants, allow, play sound, enable waiting room, lock and clear all feedback. And so, yeah, no options, configuration options become available either. So no luck. So yeah, it would be, alerts are the biggest pain. Like, how do you, this is, I mean, in this meeting of, 900 plus people, by far I mean, one week was horrible. They're like, I mean, we were just getting hammered by people, and how do we get rid of these chat pop-ups? How do we get rid of these? I mean, it was endless. I'm like, you can't really mute them, I mean, there's options in the settings that make it look like you can, but it really doesn't like effectively mute them. And I'm asking, I'm not instructing, I'm asking to see if anybody has a better method. I mean, the best method I could come up with is open your chat window. Stop closing your chat window, because it's popping up bubble alerts because your chat window's closed. And if you really want and don't want to see it, open it, pop it out, and drag it to another monitor, or almost all the way off the one monitor you have, right? And because when it's open, the pop-up bubbles don't happen anymore. But I couldn't find any other way to extinguish those pop-up chat messages while the chat window is closed.
If you're not in full screen, if you're in full screen, then any chat thing will come in front of you. If you're not in full screen, I think it just goes to the edge, doesn't it? I have not ever had
If the chat window's open, so Lois, be our speaker. Well, I mean, you can be an attendee for all that goes, but just be this attendee who's complaining about these pop-ups. One thing that's guaranteed is they're only popping up because their chat window's closed. So close your chat window altogether.
And somebody send me a chat.
And we'll start sending you chats.
Actually, I don't recognition or just any chat.
It's any. I mean, okay. I'll send to everyone.
Oh, okay.
There's a hello, everybody.
What I have is 2 lines, tiny at the bottom.
Yep. And that's what they were complaining about.
They're complaining about that?
Yeah, because that was
Ignore
also
it, it'll go away.
that was also no, but watch. So
it went away.
I am going to. Oh, it does go away, but when you've got 900 plus people in the meeting, as you know, even with the 500, that chat's flying. It's nonstop, and so you can't.
Why can't I?
That's the whole point here. This is the whole exercise. You can't turn off. I mean, I can't turn off chat globally. That is a feature that her name is Lynn, the boss. There's no way this meeting would happen without chat. So I'm going to enable live transcript. Go ahead and turn on captioning now that it's available. And now, several of us. So everybody queue up, everybody who's here, queue up a chat message, but don't send it yet. And we're going to get queued up to send. So I've got one in my chat window ready to send. I'll assume others do. And I'm going to count 3, 2, 1, send, Robert send, Kirsten send. So just kind of follow the rhythm. I'll go first, Robert goes second, Kirsten go third. Do we have anybody else that's on? I know we're thinning out. That'll do. So us three. So Jeff, Robert, Kirsten. Here we go. Oh, Michael's participating too. Cool. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 to Michael. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Send. And then let Lois explain what she's seen as far as multiple pop-ups or whatnot. Unmute. You're still muted. There we go. I got you.
Maybe I was doing it wrong, but all I'm seeing is the transcription. There's no pop-ups in the middle of the transcription.
So click and
Okay,
drag
let's do this one more time. Maybe I had the wrong thing set. Can you just send another couple messages, please?
All right.
Sorry about that.
I'm going to go 3, 2, 1. Bingo. Bingo. Bingo.
Okay. So the chat pop-up is covering up a portion of the transcription window. It's still very small, but it is covering up a portion.
Yeah.
Is that what you see, Jeff?
Yeah, I just, I just have somebody on the end experiencing. This is what they were, like several, at least 15 people, were consuming a lot of chat space, complaining, trying to solve it, and so forth. And so, if you look under settings, if you look under chat settings really aren't chat settings. They're not necessarily in meeting chat. I think some of them are, but I think some of them are also intermingled with
Zoom chat.
I don't even know what they call it. It's the Zoom chat.
Yeah.
In meeting Zoom chat. It's out of meeting Zoom chat, if you will. And so they make you feel like you might make some progress, but you don't, and it doesn't seem to fly. And so
I fixed my problem, by the way.
Okay, sure.
The chat thing is no longer overlapping the what do they call it? The CCs. And all I did was I took my big Zoom window and I shrunk it a little bit, and these things spread apart and they're not overlapping anymore.
But it didn't kill the alert, right?
No.
So is that a bigger pop-up for you?
It just means that the pop-up doesn't cover up my transcription.
Yeah, but they didn't want to see it. Their whole request was, how do I get rid of these things? And so that's what you have to try to respond to, is how do you get rid of those pop-ups? And
wait them out. That's the only thing I can think of. Turn it on. Or
but they never stop. Seriously, I haven't done a line count, but there's, in this meeting that lasts about 2 hours, there are thousands and thousands of entries. It is non-stop the entire time. And so, I get that. I understand and get that frustration. And I just bring it up because, it's that. So like I said, my recommendation after, doing it is either open the chat window, pull it as far to the right edge as you can, making it as narrow, it will eventually stop. And then there's a horizontal line as well between participants and chat that lets you shrink it, the height as well as the width. And now if I have you made that adjustment, Lois? So open the chat window, make it as narrow and short as possible.
Actually, what I did is I opened the chat window and then I moved my window on my screen so that was off the edge of the screen. I can't see it at all. It's still going over there, but
Yeah.
I don't
And
see
yeah,
it.
that's another, that was one of the other suggestions, is either have it open and shrink it or pop it out so it's a floater and just drag it off the edge of the screen or to another monitor if you have one. It is, like you said, it's but there's no more pop-ups because Zoom client thinks it's open, and it is, but you're not having to look at it, right? And that's the best I could come up with. I'd love to, find somebody who says, "Hey, yeah, this is the way you really do it." It's like, great, but that's the best I can come up with. It kind of has to be open. Like I've got mine shrunk widthwise and height-wise with the participants above it, so small I can type a message, but I can't see any messages.
I can
And
see
so,
one.
yeah, I can't even see one. So, I mean, I guess that's, kind of valid, kind of works.
Yeah, and I still like the old stand. Drag the window on your screen until the stuff is off the edge. It works on a
Yeah.
Mac. I'm not sure if that would work on Windows. Does it work on Windows?
What's that?
To take the Zoom window and literally physically drag it so it goes off the edge.
Yeah.
Can you do
So
that on Windows?
if I were, if I shared my Zoom window, you can drag, that off like so,
Yep.
or what I had mentioned earlier, you could pop out the chat window and then you just kind of drag it down here. So you see the title bar, but you don't have to see the chat anymore. And so it's there. And then, if you don't care about the participants and so this chat's just kind of tucked away. I have another monitor, so I can move it to the left monitor or the right monitor. But if I was only one monitor, then I'll just drag it right down there. So I don't even have to see it, but Zoom still thinks it's open. And therefore there's no more pop-ups, right?
I'll go try that.
Yeah. And then to put it back in, to tell it to merge.
I think you just click the X and it goes back in, don't you?
I don't think so. I think that closes the chat. Let's do the pop out and close. Yeah, that closes it. So I'd have to open it again, but it remembers that it was a floater. And if I minimize it, I could minimize it. I guess it is a separate Zoom window. It's not showing as a separate Zoom window. So minimize is like close. Yeah.
But I think you're
So
sharing your screen
do
may
this
change
for
something.
me. Let me send a few messages out, if you would. My chat is closed, so I should get pop-up alerts if you guys will send a few messages.
But you're sharing. How am I going to send a message?
Oh, all right. Okay.
Oh, that's interesting. When you stopped sharing, it rearranged the screen and brought it back onto the window.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, so I got a pop-up from Lois. Yeah, I saw the other day. I'm a fan of, like, Idol or AGT, the talent shows. And this is totally off topic, but I thought about you, Lois, a day or two ago, because her nickname was Nightbird. The Nightbird and Lois, she was from Davis, California, and she just passed away last weekend. She was 31 or so, but she went on AGT, had a beautiful song, had this beautiful personality, and she was very, very sick, battling cancer, and she is now since passed. But the Nightbird and Davis, I'm like, are you kidding me? That tied
Her name
me to
wasn't
Lois
Lois,
twice.
was it? Was it Lois?
No. I'll have to look. They do publish her real name.
Yeah.
But that'd be a little scary, huh?
Yeah. At least you didn't think it was me because you saw her.
No.
So I'm going to have to leave pretty soon.
Okay.
So
So I've
on the
got
way
those.
out, I would like to make sure that everyone knows that I am doing a new show called Birding with Lois. Y'all are welcome to join in either as a panelist or an audience member, or submit questions to us. The place to submit questions is our website, birdingwithlois.global. Thank you.
Hey, I'll be happy to report to you. I now have my Canon 6D with my 70 to 200 lens on it, laying on my kitchen island, which is right by my upper deck's back door. And I have a bundle of trees that right now we have a ton of blue jays and cardinals. And so I have every intention on getting a few shots and coming on and sharing. So
Cool.
I mean, pretty common bird. There are these little birds. I have no idea what they are, and they've got some really cool color to them.
You can take a picture, one of the little birds, go to our website. There's a place where you can submit a photo and you can submit a question to be asked on the show. So you can say, what's this bird? Put in a photo and we'll deal
Can
with
I
it.
send a picture of a dead bird? Because I have a particular bird that I would not mind killing, because I wouldn't really kill a bird, but they've pecked 2 holes in the side of my house, woodpeckers. And oh my goodness, so frustrating. Deciding, and they've got 2 like quarter-size holes all the way through. I'm like, you dogs. And
Yeah, so
they
we
come
would,
back every year.
if you sent in a dead bird, and said, what is this? We would probably not use that photo on the air, but we would find pictures of the bird when it was alive, and we would
When
describe
it was alive, yeah.
because we
I'll
have
take it
access
when
to
it's alive. No,
thousands of pictures.
I'm not a bird killer. More of a, how can I keep these things from coming? I've read stuff that, if you hang mount an owl on,
No,
or a
woodpeckers.
bag, or
Woodpeckers aren't
a
gonna care.
reflective pi 10, something
Not
that's
for
reflective. I mean, but something needs to
No,
work, because these things
if you
drive me
put
nuts.
metal over the wood, they wouldn't make holes in your wood, but they may still drum. They may still get
Yeah.
out to go.
Well,
"Bong,
even when they're
bong,
doing
bong,
it to the
bong."
wood, it wakes us up in the mornings like
Yeah.
really
I
early.
hear them all the time in my neighborhood.
They're tough. You leaving, Robert?
No, I was waving to Kirsten.
Oh,
Interesting.
there we go.
Okay, and I better go too.
they're
So I'll
they're
see y'all
pretty
later.
impressive. But then I think we'll wrap everything up. So thanks, Lois and Pete and Robert, and we got Michael's here, Ken's here. But it's been a good get together. How do you like the new look, by the way? I've got the orange theme, the new logo, and
I like it.
I look all right.
Yeah.
Looks good.
So-
Looks good. And you're using a different camera today because your camera goes in and out of focus as you move around. So.
No, I put it on autofocus, and I put it on autofocus, and I did so when my face leaves, it's catching the background. So it's only because I'm moving. I need to. I used to rely on my son to just dial me in and leave it on manual so that it wouldn't do that. But he's gone. He's at college. So
Just a quick word, if
anyways.
I can say right before we end up. I use very similar queue layouts as you do. And the only difference is that I have my list of pre-event items is longer than the event items usually.
Oh yeah, all the readiness tasks, right?
It's amazing. And especially when we're doing hybrid events, we usually share the file. And so whoever's done a task puts it off in green, just so we know where we are and what's been done. And if something's
Absolutely.
not done, it's in red and we know we need to come back to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have that as like a live spreadsheet where you just kind of click and color code type deal?
A spreadsheet.
And it's shared, right? So multiples can access it. Yeah, I'll tell you, the multi-user, Google spreadsheets and others have really become a lifesaver in this business. That's for sure.
Yeah. Especially when you're doing hybrids, when you got people walking around in a conference room somewhere, and I'm sitting back here, and we've got interpreters in a different place. It
Yeah.
really does. To have your queues set up beforehand is just a lifesaver. It's the only
Absolutely.
way that I know how to do it.
The other thing I'd like, I think it's more about the person, like the show caller, like, during showtime. I haven't met a show caller that'll do it yet or does it, but I'd like them to highlight the row and color it, like make it green, move it to the, I like it to move. All I have to do is watch, and I can always, because how many times I've lost myself in like where they are, right? And it would be great if there was that visual cue, kind of it's not a script, it's not a teleprompter, but it's moving from row to row, as they call it. That would be great. And it might be a custom application or a macro somebody could write, to undo this highlight and one row down and so forth. That would be pretty slick.
We start off and just run it green from the top, so you can see where you
So
are.
it's just a building green. Yeah. No, that would work. Yeah.
But like
Well,
you said,
good
it's just to
stuff.
see where you are at any given moment in time.
Absolutely. No,
Whereas
it's-
my little daughter says, it's not just to see if you're on the same page, it's to check if you're actually reading the same book.
that's true. Same paragraph, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's good.
Jeff, thank
That's
you very
good.
much. Lovely seeing you
Hey,
again.
good seeing you. Hey, how, real quick, everything, I mean, I thought about you a lot lately, with the news and the, Russia, Ukraine, because you guys are on the southwest border, a lot of the southwest border of Ukraine, right? And how close are you to that border?
We are literally 300 kilometers. It's a three-hour drive away from the border.
Okay.
And at the moment, there are about 50,000 people coming across the border every day.
Wow.
The government has organized camps, refugee camps along the border, so that people who are coming in are being helped straight away. And in fact, there's been so much help going to them that they've said no for a minute because they're just overwhelmed by the amount of stuff that
Wow.
they're getting. The obvious thing, of course, and we've been talking to a lot of people about this, is cash is probably the best thing to give them at the moment because they know what they need more than we know what we want to give them.
Yeah.
And then we've got people we've got organized through the churches and the parishes so that people know where they can stay. People have just offered their extra homes, apartments, whatever. And so at this stage we're sort of coping, but I can imagine within a month, if this continues, then everyone will start feeling the burden of having to look after a lot more than they can actually cope with. So we've been coming up with simple solutions, like amongst a community, that if someone is giving their flat out to a family, then someone picks up the electricity bill this month, someone picks up the water bill this month, the heating bill, and then we pass it on. So that starting to think about those things, because the midterm items are going to impact a lot of people.
Yeah, it's gonna take, it's gonna take a society, a community, but it's gonna take more than just one country of Poland. I mean, it's really gonna take efforts around the world to really help this. I mean, I can't imagine, the children and the children only, like, I mean, if they get there, thank goodness, they may be in a safer place, but did they come with knowing who their parents are so that, hopefully they can reunite one day? And oh my goodness, I've thought about it. I just can't imagine, going through what they're going through.
Yeah, the atrocities of war is something that we're actually living through now and not just reading in history books. And we are
Yeah.
part of it. We are part
Yeah.
of it, and it's very scary.
Absolutely.
But on the human side, the people who are coming across, there's a lot of help being given to them. People are coming, there are points where the Ukrainians are coming to and saying, I need this, this, and this. I mean, people are arriving without clothes, except for the clothes they have on them. And so they have specific requirements. I need this size clothes, this size medicine of a specific type. And so that is being organized, and it seems to be working. But how long that will work for, what scale it can work for, no one is really thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly. I mean, if you, in all honesty, if you have a fund that, somebody from the U.S. can, donate through that you trust, and you know where it's going, and let me know, or even put it in chat or email it to me. And I mean, I'm a long ways away, but I certainly would help and contribute any way I can.
Jeff, I think if you look up the Greek Orthodox Church or the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America, I'm sure they have some sort of connection to the Orthodox Church in Ukraine.
Cool.
The question is, where does the help go to? Because I think that's what people are struggling with. Does it go to the people who are leaving Ukraine, or does it go to the people within Ukraine? And a lot of people are asking that question.
Yeah.
We in Poland are really focused on the people who are coming across the border, because that seems to be what we have been given to help. Yeah? It's physical, we can see it, we are experiencing it. And we've actually spoken with the Pentecostal Church in the States, and they have they're talking about working with Caritas in Poland. So that's an organization where you can provide money as an individual or as an institution, and that's reliable, trust, and we know that the money will get to the people who need it and not just be burnt out in admin type work.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm finding a couple. It says one here. Yeah, if you have any links, let me know. And
I
this
will
one
send you
says Archbishop launches Ukraine Relief Fund. That's Greek Orthodox there. I'm looking at our own church as well. I mean, our church usually helps a lot. Church members in Ukraine Express. Yeah, I'll find some more. How to help. There's how to help. Anyways. Well, know that my thoughts and prayers are with the whole situation, and certainly reach out if there's anything special that, you think of, or I can help sponsor, even an effort, if it's you and I putting together some kind of effort or something, can't imagine, I mean, technology, they've walked away from everything, technology, home, families, husbands. I mean, it's just terrible. So anyways, all right. Well, it's, let me copy that before I close things down.
I think that seems to be the most solid, and this is Caritas in the whole of Europe, so they are helping in Poland, in Hungary, in Romania, in Slovakia. That seems to be the most active and reliable. I'm not saying the others aren't. This is the one I know.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure there's bundles, but yeah, I see that. Yeah, I'll visit this site and read about and do something. All right. Well, very good. I'm gonna wrap up with some music and slides, and look forward to seeing you guys next week.
See you, Pete, Michael.
Awesome.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.